I've cycled down to Malcolm Ryan Studios today as Mike from the production house Ekstasy was shooting there today. He's a really good buddy of mine. I haven't seen him for a really long time and wanted to use this opportunity to have a catch up with him and find out how COVID has affected his company, his shoots, what the future holds for Ekstasy during these uncertain times. It's always a bit tricky to speak to people when you're actually working, so I'm really pleased to have a day off today and have the opportunity to have a good old chat with him.
Hello.
How are you doing, Mike? It's been a long time since I've seen you.
I know, months. It's been just disappeared like that.
It has. I am really interested to ask you a couple of quick questions. How has COVID affected you as a production company?
Well, it's very interesting, like you've seen the transition of Ekstasy over the last few years, and we've transitioned into a full-blown agency, creative, media, but production is true to our soul. That's how we started, and it's really interesting to see that we have been extremely fortunate that we had a few very good years, and that we are in a position to keep most of our people with us for a long period of time, at least till the end of this year. But when it hit early on, we initially thought it would just be a phase for a month or so and it'll disappear. But I must say it has been extremely stressful for everyone. As a content creation company, as a production house, as a creative studio, we are finding that we have never pitched more than we have at the moment. We are pitching so much more work, and I think that is reflecting from a point of view of that the brands want more ideas on the table. They're just so uncertain, right? So I think it has affected us really, really deeply. I really feel sorry for a lot of other companies who have gone under, unfortunately, but Ekstasy is here to survive. It'll stay and rather thrive because we're now growing in America as well. But COVID times, productions physically have gone down. Last couple of shoots that we've been on, we've been quite fortunate that because we've been following COVID guidelines and stuff, but it has been extremely hard.
And what steps have you taken to ensure a safe shoot today?
Well, as you're aware, and you're the master of doing all of this, but make sure we have a very, very strong risk assessment in place, please. Extremely important. Make sure you speak to your insurance company. Make sure you've got your multimedia, producers indemnity, public liability, employers liability, all that sorted. And then on top of that, make sure you get a health declaration form signed from all your cast and crew. Extremely important. Make sure they understand what they're signing. That's another thing. Now you'll get their data. How are you going to make sure that that data is going to be safe and secure? So within your team, somebody senior should be responsible for that data and answerable if it goes missing or leaked. Suddenly all production and content and ad agencies will end up becoming a bit of mini Googles and Amazons because they'll end up having so much data of so many people. So I guess we need to help each other out. So what we have done is make sure that we have all this pre-preparation to the build-up of the shoot. All the, as I said, release forms, health declaration forms, all the insurances have been put in place for both cast and for crew. We've also given them very clear instructions, and so far we've seen everyone is complying on set, is wearing masks, keeping 2 meters away, making sure that they're not huddling around key screens. We have also invested more in the kit so that everyone can have their own monitors to see. We have made sure that we have ring-fenced the studio so no stray person can sort of walk over. We've put what we call Checkpoint Charlie, where we have our own Ekstasy Checkpoint Charlie, where we have temperature taking being done, which is very interesting. So everyone walks in. If anyone will fail that, they will go home in the morning, and then strict measures after lunch in place as well. So hopefully nobody so far has fallen ill, so we've not had to shut the set down. But there are some very, very strict rules around general hand washing, sanitizing, wearing masks, temperature taking. But we're also giving everyone sort of COVID goodie bags where they've got their masks and gloves and sort of hand sanitizers as well, just that added level. of protection. We've got hand sanitizers dotted around the studio. We're in a largish studio. So one thing which I would say though is to a lot of producers or brands or other content companies who are looking at doing shoots during COVID, it is a major undertaking. Let's be very honest. But if you pre-plan this well in advance, it will really solve your massive headache that can happen during or after the shoot. So, you know, I don't need to tell you how risky this whole situation is, but we need to be super prepared at the very beginning. If you are applying, for example, applying for child licenses at the moment is so difficult. If you don't have a thorough risk assessment, you will struggle getting a child license done in the normal period of time. So please, please, please give yourself at least, you know, the window of 15, 21 days so that you can pre-plan that. So we've worked very closely with some of the councils because we also had kids on shoot days. So yeah, a lot of measures all across pre-production, production, also post-production. Another thing about, you know, everyone talks about track and trace in restaurants. So we've had that sort of same kind of mindset. We've let everyone know that if anyone, God forbid, falls ill, we will have to inform everyone else. The people will have to self-quarantine themselves for 2 weeks. So, you know, we've kept it quite transparent, but we've had to put a lot of measures in place for all of this to happen.
So Mike, can you tell us how COVID has affected your budgets?
Budgets are very interesting at the moment. You know, I would say a lot of the very big productions are on hold. And the reason for that is not necessarily the actual producing of it, but the use of that content. And a lot of big brands are in two minds whether they should put a lot of money behind them in media spend. And as we are all aware, production goes hand in hand in how it'll be advertised from a media point of view. So I think the media budgets coming down has affected the bigger budgets for production by default. So yes, the budgets are on hold, but we are having, as I said earlier, we're having so many pitches at the moment, which gives me hope and promise for the future, which shows that brands are extremely keen to jump back on and start the whole process again as soon as there's a bit more surety in the market. So that's what I would say. Their budgets at the moment are, bigger ones are frozen, but on small and middle, you know, medium-sized budgets, they're still going. But I think there's a direct correlation between media and content.
And in terms of this shoot in particular, things that you perhaps maybe pre-COVID wouldn't have planned for, i.e. COVID supervisors, masks, PPE, all the extra protections that you've been talking about, where does that fall in your budget?
Very good question. So nobody was prepared for it. So I would say we as a company always try and have contingencies in place for, not for things like COVID, but in general. And I would always say 10% contingency should be negotiated with clients in advance. But there are shoots, you know, there are shoots that we are on and will be on where budgets are extremely tight and they're fixed price, you know, budgets. So we're having very honest chats with the heads of those companies and going back to them and saying, we understand you weren't aware of these extra costs, but here are the transparency breakdown. Are you willing to front this? If yes, great. If not, as a company, we need to understand and take the risk and see whether this is worth taking out from our actual profit margins, if there is a margin in place. But it's a very tricky situation. But if the margin of the production company is so squeezed that this extra bit of pressure is going to actually put them in a loss, I would highly recommend to speak to the customer, the client, the brand, and say, is it worth it? Because you don't want to be in a loss. The last thing you want to do is not be able to pay people properly at the end of the shoot.
So Mike, what does the future hold in these uncertain times for Ekstasy as a company?
Well, I was speaking to Boris yesterday about it, but yeah, and he was saying, oh, we'll all be fine. You know, on a more serious note, I think, as I said at the very beginning, Ekstasy has been very fortunate over the years to be a profitable company and be in a position where we are trusted by our clients over 12 years. So, you know, we've built a fantastic repertoire of great brands, people who trust us. So we see ourselves actually growing. We're only, you know, I think a handful of agencies in the area in Central who are actually hiring more people. We are hiring people in Europe, in UK, and recently now in the States. So we're in a fortunate position to be in that place. But I see Ekstasy sort of by the end of next year, hopefully if everything sort of becomes slightly more normal again, actually become even more stronger, purely because, you know, follow the rules, do the right thing, get a little lucky, and I think everything else will be fine.
I think you'll be absolutely fine. Thank you, Mike, so much for letting me pop in and see you. It's been so lovely to see you guys, and I really, really hope that I'll see you on another shoot very, very soon.
Absolutely. Thanks, Janine. Take care. Bye.